Hey folks, how's it going? Obviously, this is Karyn here for the MMA Heat podcast. Now, as you can see, my partner in crime, Alan, is not here today. Now, we know that obviously he's got a fight coming up. He's taking on Ben Saunders at UFC Orlando. That is coming up. And so, when I'm over at Fox, when DC has a fight or something coming up, he kind of takes some time off to train. So Alan was going to be here today. Just had some things going on with his dog, I hate to say it, that have kind of caused him to not be able to come today. So we were waiting, hoping that we'd be able to do it together. But some of those things just kind of took priority. So I know he wanted to be here and everything, and obviously I love having him here. Just not here today because of issues with the pup, but he's definitely, here and still part of the team and everything like that. So, we'll just come back next week and everything will be, I thought it was better to turn that down.
I was just unmute it.
Yeah, that's what I did. So he will be here next time. So anyway, with that said, obviously there was a big, some stuff that happened last night at UFC Seattle. St. Louis. So there were fight stuff, obviously, but then also we did some interviews after with Jeremy Stephens and with Dana White, and Dana brought some stuff up that I don't know if you guys want to talk about or whatever. So maybe we'll do more question and answer today. And actually, we do have Kenny, one of our clips from Kenny Johnson of Bolt Wrestling. Now, I just want to say for the record, and I'll say it again before we roll it in there, that Kenny's opinions are his own. They are maybe the same opinions that some of you guys hold and some of the coaching staffs out there hold, but I don't always agree with everything that Kenny says. But so he might get a little harsh today, but it comes from his own perspective. With that being said, it'll be about weight cutting. Let's just say that. So in terms of the overall event for UFC St. Louis, I know some people were saying, oh, it wasn't that exciting and there were some boring fights. That can't happen, but the main event wasn't boring. Jeremy Stephens and DooHo Choi wasn't boring. I really, didn't have like a pick for that fight or a favorite in that fight. I just kind of wanted it to be good, and I thought it was good. I'll say that I actually thought that DooHo Choi won the first round. Only one of the judges agreed with me, for whatever that's worth. And I don't exactly... At the time, it just seemed like he sort of was doing more and maybe was controlling a little more and landed more shots. But I could see how it was a close round. And obviously, in the second, Jeremy got the finish. I will say this: I thought DooHo Choi fought a lot better than he did against Cub. That fight was amazing and that fight was incredible. But if you look at it, obviously there were certain things about it that were kind of sloppy. And so I thought that DooHo Choi looked much tighter in this fight against Jeremy. And I thought he looked more composed in this fight, which I thought was important and smart for him. He did say in an interview beforehand that he actually hadn't trained enough for Cub before. He kind of learned that lesson that he needed to train better and smarter and more. So I liked the DooHo Choi that I saw. But obviously, when you mess around with Jeremy Stephens, you know what can happen. And Jeremy is very, very good. And it's amazing because he's, that was his 28th UFC fight. He's now one fight behind Michael's record, Bisping's record of 29 UFC fights. And Jeremy's just looking amazing after. So after the fight, he called out T-City, Bryant Ortega, and Ortega was there. And I personally like that fight. Ortega obviously is climbing up the ranks and beat Cub Swanson recently and is looking for a title shot. Frankie Edgar is getting the title shot with Max Holloway next. So maybe Brian could kind of wait for the winner of that fight and be next in line, or if he wants to stay active, I like the idea of him fighting Jeremy Stephens. So I thought that was kind of cool that they were jawing at each other, and Jeremy seemed down for it. I think Dana seemed okay with it, although he said, well, there's some other things that we were looking at with Brian, so whatever that means, maybe they actually already had some bigger plans for Brian, which I guess I could see. But we'll see what happens. Michael was saying one thing on the show last night about Brian, and he says, hey, the thing about it is Brian's the new guy, the new flavor, the hot new thing, and I could see how he might get some opportunities before Jeremy, who's the veteran, who's been around for a long time. And I can kind of see that. Like, Little Heathen is such a reliable person to put on an incredible fight all the time. I don't know if I've ever... Is there a boring Jeremy Stephens fight? I'm not sure there is. But I can see how Brian Ortega has a lot of momentum and he has maybe a younger fan base and that kind of thing. So I could see if they were kind of fast-tracking him a little bit. But we'll see what happens. I like the idea of that fight. In the co-main event, Feel bad for Paige Vanzant. She did break her arm. I don't know if you guys saw, we put a picture out and she had shared it herself of her arm that was broken. And she said that she broke it in the first round. So obviously that's going to color what you can do in the fight, and you're not going to be able to do everything that you trained for and everything that you prepared for. You know, I wanted to see the real Paige at 125 pounds to see if there was a difference. So I feel like we kind of got cheated out of seeing what she really can be and what she could really do in this newer weight class. There's a shot of the broken arm and all that. So I feel like I need to see her fight again at 25 to see if I like her there more than 115 pounds. I thought Jessie Jess did a good job after the tough week she's had with the home break-in and all of that to be able to come in here and focus. And I guess she admitted that she wasn't 100%. You know, everything didn't really go right for her and she didn't feel great in the octagon. It wasn't the ideal performance for her. That said, she did win. I think a lot of it too came down to, you know, she really does have that size advantage. She's a power lifter who used to fight at 135 pounds. And it seemed to me in some of those exchanges, even if the technique wasn't there, that her size advantage and powerful build was what was giving her some of the advantages in some of those positions. But I do think both of them, you could work on some technique, but I wasn't mad at that fight. And again, with Paige fighting that with a broken arm, we've always said the thing about Paige is that she has so much heart and you can't teach that. So I think all of us need to give her, you know, a lot of credit for that. A lot of people, I'm sure, would have just stopped the fight. We know OSP fought once with a broken arm too, and I'm sure others have as well. So I'm glad that she didn't. I mean, I don't know. Part of me is glad that she didn't stop because I wanted to see the fight. But at the same time, I feel like, well, maybe she should have because we didn't really see the Paige that we were expecting or hoping to see. So hopefully that heals quickly and she gets a good fight for her next one. Before that, let's see. Kamaru Usman. So I want to talk about this because I also, too, was a little critical of him in his post-fight interview. He said he fought at 30% and, you know, I was still dominant and I just was, you know, had 30% and I'm, you know, dangerous. And he called out Colby, which, by the way, I do like that fight, him and Colby. But a lot of us were kind of harshing on Kamaru by saying, oh, you only fought at 30%. Like, that's ridiculous. Why would you do that? That's so lame. You should always come in. Don't fight safe. I thought he meant he was fighting safe. You know, he's got a 10-fight win streak. You want to protect it. And I kind of thought it meant that he wasn't giving 100%. He wasn't giving 100% tonight. But then he clarified it. And he said, no. What I'm saying is I was only 30% healthy. And I could have pulled out of the fight. Maybe some people would have advised me to. I didn't want to do that. So he was rephrasing it and saying that his body was at basically like a 30% ability rate. So that's what he meant. And that makes a lot more sense. I know Dana was pretty bummed after that fight. And a lot of people were saying that, you know, it was a boring fight. So I feel like that does give a little bit of an explanation to that. And I know some people are like, oh, Kamaru, all he does is wrestle and he's boring. But he's not, because if you remember what he did to Sergio Moraes, he knocked him out. So I think Kamaru is a very, very good fighter, and I think he is a very dangerous fighter, and I feel like, yeah, nobody really is raising their hand. So I'm glad Emil Mech did so that Kamaru could stay busy. But I do look forward to seeing the real, quote-unquote, the real Kamaru, 100% Kamaru in his next one because yeah, if he's saying he was only fighting at 30%, then he was still very dominant. But I agree, it wasn't like, oh my God, the greatest fight. So before that, though, Michael Johnson and Darren Elkins, that one was great, and I actually thought Michael was going to win that fight, but it wouldn't be easy because Darren Elkins is near impossible to get rid of, and the guy's got so he just knows how to dig deep, and as we know, he can take the damage, and he's got it written on his chest, and we know that that's just who he is. But I thought that Michael's boxing, because his boxing is usually very crisp, and I thought that he would be able to use that and kind of touch Darren up, which he did land a lot of good stuff. But you know, Darren is ridiculous. So good for him. Good win for him. And I think that, you know, Michael, I do kind of like him as a 45er. So again, it's kind of the same thing with Paige. It's their first out in a new weight class. Obviously, Michael wasn't, you know, injured or whatever, and he could fight. He just lost. But I would be curious to see what he does the next time, because when you look at him and you see him there at 45, you're like, yeah, you're not a big dude, so it seems like that could be a weight class for you. And he's, you know, I think it's a good idea. I know sometimes people, if they hit a rough patch or a skid, they're trying to reinvent themselves. Michael's been in the game a long time, but I feel like I do want to see where he goes there. I think I might like him better at 45, although he said, you know, obviously he's going to still keep his eyes on the 55 division. So that's cool. Again, so for those of you, if anybody's just jumping in here, Alan wasn't able to make it today because he was having some problems. His pup is not feeling well. So we were holding off. We were going to do this earlier in the day. trying to see if Alan could make it, but he couldn't. But he will be back. He'll be back next time. So let's see if there are any questions here. Now, somebody is saying Colby would outpoint Usman. You know, Harold Tripper, I don't know. It's interesting to me because I feel like when we saw Kamaru knock out Sergio Moraes, I don't know, are his hands better than Colby's hands? I don't really feel, I mean, I know Colby did well against Damian. I'd like to see him do more with his hands, I guess. I'd like to see him fight somebody who is more of a threat on standing because, let's be honest, you know, Damian was landing a lot on Colby as well. So I would be curious to kind of see if it ended up also being staying on the feet, because a lot of time when you get two wrestlers, they don't take it to the ground and they end up on the feet. I think Kamaru is a better wrestler there. I said it though. So I don't know. We'll see if that fight happens. If you ask Kamaru, he says that Usman, that Colby's been ducking him, and I know Colby's ranking kind of went up, and you know he's looking for that title fight. I think Rafael dos Anjos should be next for that title fight personally. So I feel like Colby hasn't quite earned the title shot yet. So I'd like to see him fight somebody else. But obviously, as we know, it's not up to me. So, all right, let's see. Usman is a future champ. I do agree with that too. I mean, he did win the Ultimate Fighter. Rashad Evans is kind of his mentor. I've heard stuff about him from Rashad for a long time. So I think Kamaru does have a bright future. I think it's going to be hard for him, though, to overcome maybe the bad taste that people have in their mouth after this last fight, and maybe really try to explain that 30% thing, because it really doesn't sound like, hey, why did I just showed up, I paid, well, I know it wasn't pay-per-view, but people paid for their seats and da-da-da, and you only gave me 30%. I could see how there might be some ill will towards him. So hopefully that changes. Okay, so somebody is saying, Geraldo Figueroa is saying, what happened to Vitor that he didn't fight? So the whole situation came up really when Uriah Hall was unable to weigh in. And reports are that he was actually very close to weight, and that he was on weight, and that he was on his way over. And then things went really south for him. And you hear about bodies shutting down. Uriah did some interviews, and he was talking about how a few weeks ago, 3 weeks ago or so, his body had shut down, and so he really wasn't in a great physical state, because he said he hadn't ever really stopped training after the H.E.A.T fight, and so his body was just kind of exhausted and broken down, and his body had shut down from him. He was also talking about Tim Elliott and Robert Follis, people that trained. Obviously, we know that Robert Follis had passed away, so that was something that Uriah was witnessing people going through, and was going through himself, the passing of Robert Follis, and then also, I guess, one of Uriah's own close personal friends had also passed away. So he talked about in some of these interviews a lot of things that were going on in his camp beforehand, and he wasn't, just maybe it was a bad one. Let's just put it that way. So cut to, though, him trying to fight and not making it to the scale, not being able to fight. So the story now is then, and Dana confirmed this, has told us on the air after, that they actually did offer Vitor a person to fight in St. Louis, and he said no. And then they also offered him somebody for Boston, and he said no. And at the time, partly you kind of figure, well, that's silly, because Vitor, he's ready and he probably wants to fight. But, this was supposed to be his retirement fight. So I feel like no matter how you feel about Vitor, I know a lot of people have conflicting feelings about him, but I feel like, the legacy that he has created, the amazing things that he has done over the course of his career, I think you need to let this man go out the way that he wants to go out. I feel like he needs to have the retirement fight that he wants. Uriah would have been a great one for him. I think that would have been a really exciting fight. I can understand, because at first we didn't know the names, and I think it was John Morgan had put out some names that he said that were offered to Vitor, and I can guarantee you most people don't know who those people are, and so I could see how Vitor would say no to that. Because after you built this incredible history and legacy, to go out on a name with and no disrespect, these people may end up being great fighters, but I could see how you might say, hey, you know what, I'm not going out against a who's that guy type of person. So I can respect that. There are rumors that he's going to fight Michael. There were rumors that I guess it really was offered to Vitor for London, but I don't know if that's going to happen. I know Dana and Michael spoke about it, and really, it's for Michael to get into the whys or the why nots. But I will say that talking to Michael about that possibility and hearing his reasons for and against it, I understand where he's coming from, and have to agree with him on the perspective he's bringing forward there, and I get it. I get where he's coming from. So don't necessarily count on that fight happening. It could not. But I don't even know if I want to see those two fight again together. To be honest with you, I really just don't know if I want to. But I did want to see Vitor versus Uriah. So that's the long way to answer the question that they don't know what they're going to do with Vitor yet, and how soon he could fight, or if he's not going to at all, if he will have the retirement fight or not. That's kind of still up in the air. So let's see. What do we have here? Max Conor rematch if Conor wants to avoid Khabib. Okay, so Harold Hanol Tripper, this is one of the things we asked Dana about. So we said, hey, listen, is Conor going to get stripped? What's the deal? It's been a long time. So he said that Conor had told him he didn't really want to fight again till September or something. And so Dana's like, look, that's obviously too long. So he did clarify, we point blank asked Dana, hey, does that mean you would strip Conor? And he says, yeah, if he doesn't want to fight until September, if he's not going to come back before then, yeah, we would have to strip him, and we're thinking of putting Tony and Khabib, we're trying to match that fight up together already now. And then depending on what happens after that, then if Conor wants to come back, obviously he would get that next fight. And I don't like the idea of Conor getting stripped for inactivity. I wish he would fight. I really just wish he was in there fighting. But you got to do it. If he doesn't fight, you got to strip him. I think it's cool if he can come back and, he can have this comeback story and this retribution story of taking that title away and coming back and trying to win it back again, which, potentially he could do. I just am bummed personally. I just wish that he was just active more. And maybe we got spoiled when we used to have him fighting a few times a year. And I know some people think it turned into a circus or whatever, but I always like covering his fights. They're always entertaining, and I do feel like I feel the hole, like I feel the vacancy of not having Conor active. I think it's a bummer. It sucks. So I wish he were fighting. That said, I also asked Dana because there's rumors about September and whether there was a date reserved in Moscow, and he said it wasn't 100% confirmed yet, but he really is trying to make that happen. And that's the whole thing that people are thinking, oh, September isn't that convenient because the rumor is that Moscow had already been reserved for September, and you could have Conor fight Khabib because they're so certain that Khabib would beat Tony. I'm not so certain about that. I'm not certain about anything in MMA anymore, but I don't think anybody's really looking to fight. I think fighting Khabib in Russia would be amazing, but he's already such an incredible fighter, and then to go there and have like a whole country behind that guy, and you'd be the foreigner, the bad guy coming in. That'd be a tough situation for anybody. But we'll see what happens with that. But Dana, he did talk about that on the show, and I also asked him about Hawaii, and he said that he'd always been nervous about putting on a show outside. But maybe that will happen, and supposedly he's talking some more about it, and they're really trying to run it through and see if that could happen. And somebody the other day made some comment like, hey, don't make all your plans for UFC Hawaii because, what if Frankie beats Max, which could totally happen. But I still think a Hawaii card would be pretty cool. So we're all like joking. And so this was funny to me the other day. I said we were talking about it on UFC Tonight. And we were talking about UFC Hawaii and UFC Russia. So I said to Kenny and Tyron after, I'm like, okay, well, maybe one of these will happen. Get your passports and your Speedos ready. And then somebody commented on the video. They were like, did she just say you need a passport for Hawaii? No. The Speedo was for Hawaii. The passport was for Russia. I would love to go. I hope we get to go to Russia. So let's see. Any good questions coming on? I can see some of these here. Ngannou. Okay, so if Francis wins on Saturday, who does he defend against? Anybody deserving? Can we please get Cain Velasquez back in the picture? I did see Cain tweeted today or Instagrammed a picture of him at the Performance Institute, and that underneath it said, "Don't call it a comeback." We need Cain. I want to send up the Cain signal or something. We need Cain Velasquez back in here. So I would love to see Cain back. He looked really good the last time we saw him fight. Was the last time all the way at last summer before? Oh my God, that's a bummer. But he's so good. So I really think, if he comes back in the picture, maybe you don't give him right away a title shot, right? Because that would be a little bit tricky. But, some of the other, some of the other people, it depends. It depends, I guess, on how it happens, right? Sometimes they give the former champ an immediate rematch. You know, I mean, it's hard because you've got Verdum, you've got these guys that are former champs. You know, Overeem's not. It's a little bit tricky. I guess that would be my answer. Would be Kane if he could come back and be healthy. So I don't know. I mean, that fight's going to be ridiculous. It seems so easy to just say that Francis can win, and because he can totally just knock out everybody, including a Mack truck. But, you know, Stipe is, as we've seen, incredibly hard to get rid of and incredibly powerful himself. And we haven't really seen Francis Ngannou in a lot of trouble. So I don't know if Stipe will get him down. I don't know if he'll try to wrestle him. I don't know. I mean, I feel like that's kind of the smart thing to do. But I'm interested to see if Francis gets in any sort of trouble, what becomes of him. That said, I have a feeling he'd be fine and has a pretty strong mindset if you think about everything that he's already done in his life, you know, and what he's becoming. I think he's obviously got some mental durability to already be where he is now from where he started. So I don't think he's the kind of guy that's going to crack. But we'll see, because we don't know what he is yet, because we haven't seen him in a lot of trouble. Now, speaking of trouble, as I mentioned here, Kenny Johnson, we have Keeping It Real with Kenny. So he is a wrestling coach. You know him as Bolt Wrestling, and he's coaching at Black House. So he usually is coaching Alan. And so Alan hears his rants a lot. And so as I mentioned, I don't always agree with everything that Kenny says. And I think he went a little bit harsh on Uriah Hall in this one, but you guys are the people he's talking to, so you should tell us your opinion on this. But if we could roll in Keeping It Real with Kenny, he's got some thoughts on weight cutting.
Hey, what's up? This is Kenny Johnson. We're going to keep it real this week, and we're going to have to keep revisiting the same topic. And the topic is, if you can't make weight, you're a fucking asshole. So we had two guys this weekend not make weight. But one guy was a co-main event. Now, I can't figure this shit out. He puts on there that his body shut down 3 weeks before the fight. But he didn't call a doctor, didn't pull out of the fight, just pressed on. Then he wants to say that his coach died. But I don't think he really used that coach a whole lot. And let's say he did. Man, I just buried my 17-year-old nephew this weekend. I'm at practice today. You know, you got to get right in your head. What, your kidneys shut down? That's why you couldn't make weight? And everyone's worried about you? The fact is, you cut your weight like a fucking asshole, which would then in turn shut your kidneys down. It didn't go the other way. And if you were saying that you broke down weeks and weeks before weigh-ins, you should address what your lifestyle is and how you're eating and what you're doing. You have access to everything. And if you're not making weight, you're a fucking asshole. You should lose your job. You should have to, what if you had to pay back all the money the UFC spent on you? What if you had to give back all your Reebok shit and pay them back? Like, that's never a thought to you guys. All you think about is you, and then make an excuse. 5 fucking excuses for not making weight. Nobody wants to miss weight. It sure feels a lot better if you had to go to the fucking hospital, because at least that seems like a good excuse, but it's not. End of the day, you're a fucking professional. For fuck's sake, please keep making weight. No one else in any other fucking sport hears any fucking swan song about what's going on in your life, why they can't perform properly, except for our sport. And it always has to do with fucking assholes that can't make weight. If anything I've said offends you, then you're fucking doing it wrong, and go fuck yourself. I'm out.
Okay, so once again, I really like Kenny. You know, it's a little harsh, but I'll tell you this.
I wasn't able to Chiron him. If you could explain who it is.
I did beforehand. But once again, that's Kenny Johnson of Bolt Wrestling, a great wrestling coach. But so, like I said, I heard about, read all the things that Uriah was talking about, all the things that he was going through in the camp, and it sounds like it really was not a great one for him. Mentally and physically. So my heart goes out to him for that. So I was kind of trying the other day at work over the weekend, talk to Bisping and Eve Edwards about this. And I was like, yeah, but you know, he's dealing with this, he's dealing with that, he's dealing with this, he's dealing with that. And they're like, I don't care. BS, tough luck. You got one job, make weight. So I know that Kenny, some of the things Kenny was saying were a little bit harsh, but Bisping and Eve agreed with him. I feel like a lot of people will agree with him. And I, in general, agree. You need to make weight. If that is your job, you need to make weight. So that that does, bum me out. In this situation, I do feel for Uriah. But in this situation, actually, I feel, obviously worse for Vitor there. This was supposed to be his retirement fight. He'd already wrapped his mind around it. He's pushed his body for one last time or whatever. And then that didn't happen. So I don't like the fallout. I don't like that Uriah, his issues, totally screwed over another person. That to me sucks. And we don't know what's going to happen with Vitor getting paid. I don't know that they're going to pay him. And that sucks because he needs to get paid. So that's tough. You got to make weight. But yeah, and you should plan better. Unfortunately, I didn't get to talk to Uriah before this fight, so I don't know what his headspace was like. But some accounts that I've heard that, he just didn't seem himself. So I don't know what will become of him and how confident they'll be in him booking him again. But I like the guy, and I hope that whatever issues he's having, he feels better soon. And I do know that it was a tough camp for him. So there's that. But some of you people think you agree with Kenny here. I'm looking at some of these, so I'm seeing that you guys are kind of agreeing with them. Karyn, what's left for Mighty Mouse 2018? Well, I guess he wants that super fight, right, with TJ. I mean, Mighty Mouse, yeah, he's done all there is to do, setting all kinds of records. I like the idea of DJ just going forever until he stops, and just, not that nobody can ever challenge him. Obviously, somebody can, but Demetrius is just so good, and I think it's just so fun to watch him, and especially the way he ended that last fight with that ridiculous submission was just insane. But I think he's looking for that fight with TJ. So I feel like that could happen. I'd be okay with that, I guess. In general, I'm not a big fan of the super fight idea. In general, I like the champ to fight the person that's next. But in Demetrius's case, that one is a little different. I understood, though, why he wanted to fight the right fight before and not take that super fight when everything was falling apart. Like, that to me, I totally get. But in general, I want the champ to just fight who's next. That said, I'd be curious about, like, what would DC, who was formerly a heavyweight, what would DC have done against Stipe or something like that? We know if you want to watch DC and Kane go at it, you can every day at AKA. But in general, I'm more of a fan of just fight who's supposed to be next and don't go looking for super fights, personally. That's me. But hey, maybe I'm just old school here. Okay, so let's see. Anybody else? Do you have any questions here that I might have missed? I don't know. I'm looking. Okay. No, I don't. If anybody's got any questions, you can ask me here. Otherwise, what? So DC versus Volkan Oezdemir. Hard for me to bet against DC. DC beats everybody that isn't named John Jones. And even in that second John Jones fight, I thought he was doing really, really well up until he got kicked. So, I don't know if Volkan can pull it off. He had that quick short little knockout over Serkinov, I think it was. So Volkan obviously has a lot of skill, and if you guys don't know, Volkan used to be Anthony Rumble Johnson's training partner, and basically the long and short story of it is that he's a training partner and he kept coming back, and a lot of people for Rumble can't hang, and so they only are coming there for a little while, and they can't be his sparring partner for that long, and Volkan's a guy that just kept coming back, and I guess at first the gym, they didn't really spend that much time with him, didn't really focus on him, and the fact is that he just kept coming back, and then eventually they were like, all right, well, I guess we'll start to work with you, and that's kind of how he got built. So if you can take a punch from Rumble all the time and come back and live for it, obviously Volkan is a tough guy, but we know DC's wrestling is ridiculous, and DC, even sometimes I forget what a good fighter he is because I'm so used to working with him, and he's kind of our big teddy bear, and he's a lot of fun, and he's real goofy, and I forget sometimes how good a fighter he is until about a minute and a half into the fight. And I'm like, oh yeah, like after he's already tossed somebody around and double-legged somebody and this and that. So I feel pretty confident that DC will be, and still, I mean, geez, that main event though, I just don't know. Because you could go either way. If I have to do a DraftKings pick on UFC Tonight this week, I might have to just pick Francis and Stipe just to cover it, and then I don't know what to do with the rest of my money. I can't really pick a winner in that one. I think it's going to be really good. I don't know how long it's going to last, but I can't wait. I just can't wait. But it is in Boston. I am from Boston, outside of Boston. I grew up about 35 minutes outside of Boston. I will not be in Boston, though, because I will be in the studio. And for those of you wondering when Jimmy Smith was going to be starting, obviously, you know Jimmy Smith is coming over from Bellator. He is going to join us on Saturday. So the Friday show, the weigh-in show, he's not going to be on the air with us. I guess he's going to come by and check everything out and get the lay of the land. But on Saturday, he's going to be on the air with me, and I think it's Kenny and Rashad. So that'll be fun. Jimmy, you know, I know him sort of as an acquaintance or whatever, but he always seemed like a good guy and knowledgeable and everything. So I'm looking forward to working with him. We get to razz the new guy. We get to haze him. We're going to be jumping him in. So it should be fun. So Jimmy will join us on Saturday. At the same time, Wade will be down at the Forum covering Bellator. And actually, that reminds me, I need to give Quentin a call because I'm trying to set up some time to see Rampage tomorrow because we haven't been able to see him in a really long time. So I'm really trying to get an interview with Rampage tomorrow or sometime this week. It's just a little tricky. We were going to try to go the other day and we weren't able to go. But so I will be at the desk at Fox, but Wade will be at the Forum covering all the H.E.A.T and Rampage action, the Lima McDonald action. I mean, it's going to be some good fights that night. So make sure you just kind of still, you know, watch the MMA Heat page and all that. And so he'll be posting, you know, post-fight interviews and all that good stuff. And workouts, yeah, Wednesday and, you know, so fight week stuff. So we will have you covered both on the Bellator and UFC 220. So I'm looking forward to that. And then after that, next week, I get to go to Charlotte for that Brunson-Jacare fight. So that's going to be good. But being from Boston, I have to say, I'm mad I'm not going to be there in town because it is so fun. But how about them Patriots? And now you can all you want to hate on us, but they are great. And I'm very excited that they've made it again. So far, we don't know. I'm not counting my chickens before they're hatched, but I'm excited that my team is doing so well. And congratulations to the Vikings. Those guys, what a win. What a win. Yesterday we were at work when that was happening, and it was just interesting because the football studio's next to us, and they just went ape, you know what, when that play happened and everything. So that was cool. I actually went to Minneapolis. I went to a Super Bowl there a long time ago. But anyway, so lots of good sports stuff coming up this week. What else?
Someone's asking if you cover any other combat sports. So obviously.
Well, I did. Yeah, I worked for Showtime Championship Boxing for 3.5 years. So I did that before I switched to MMA. So you know, my focus now is more on MMA, but I still obviously like boxing a lot and you know, watched. I mean, obviously, I worked there for 3.5 years, so I was like. Got to see the first 3 Vasquez-Marquez fights, you know, cage side. I was the last one to interview Diego Corrales in the ring and all this stuff. So I've seen some really incredible fights. So yes.
Last month.
Oh, yeah. Well, there's Freddie Roach. We're showing a picture of us with Freddie because Miguel Cotto was having his retirement fight. So we were over at Wild Card talking to Miguel and Freddie and, yeah, a lot of good stuff. So, yeah. McDonald versus Lima, who you got? You know, I'm a Rory McDonald fan. It's not that I don't like the Phenom, but Rory is really good. So I guess my heart would have to say Rory, but I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. And as much as I love Chael and I loved working with Chael, you know I got a root for Rampage. Come on. But I do love Chael. I really do. The guy is great. We had so much fun working together. He's a great guy. But it's Rampage. Come on.
He's awesome.
It's our buddy. All right. So let's see. Yeah, for the to win the whole thing, I don't know, Mike. But that was my pick for Saturday anyway. Is Quentin. Let's see. Brian Blaze DC needs to win if he wants to finish the rivalry with Jones. Can you? There's rumors going around that John Jones could be fighting this summer. I don't know if it's true or not. I don't know if my heart could take watching DC and John fight again. I don't know. I just don't know if I can handle it. But I don't know. I hope John Jones fights again before 2097. Because again, sort of like I was saying, it sucks that Conor's not active. I do miss seeing John Jones fight because he's incredible. But he's also given my friend a lot of heartache. So that's how I feel about that. All right, well, it's almost time to wrap it up here. Got to get going. But again, those of you who were looking for Alan, he's fine. There's just some issues with his dog, and he was dealing with that today, so he couldn't make it, but he is training like a crazy man for his fight with Ben Saunders. That's going to be at UFC Orlando, and he's really, really focused on that. So if you guys aren't already following Alan, it's at Alan Jouban on Instagram and on Twitter and everything, and he posts a lot from his training, and he's just going in beast mode. It's a little tough because he and Ben Saunders are friends, and Ben's a really, really good guy. They're both 10th Planet guys, and usually that doesn't happen that they have to fight each other, but they will this time. But both of them know they can hug it out after, and it's all good. But yeah, so Alan will be back next time. So for me on Instagram, I'm KB Heat. Here on YouTube, it's Karyn Bryant. Same on Twitter. We also have, obviously, MMA Heat. YouTube, MMA Heat. We have MMA Heat on Facebook, and that's where, again, we'll have Bellator stuff for you this week and UFC 220 things. And Trocasal. So Evie, my partner in crime, Evie, we got to figure this out because she was in St. Louis and then she's going to Boston, so we're going to try to find some time. She was there, obviously, dealing with all the Vitor stuff and all that. So we will try to get out a Trocasal for you guys as well this week. But that is it. Thanks for watching. Thanks for joining us. Happy MLK Day. Let's be nice to each other. Not just today. Every day. See you next time. Thanks.